What's up, guys? Welcome to the Top Shelf Show. My name is Dustin Kinnan. We are so excited to have you here. On this show, we talk to high-quality entrepreneurs and business owners about life, about family, about work, about goals and dreams and everything that goes into being an entrepreneur. We are so excited to have you here. We hope you walk away with some incredible insight into their lives and their stories and some inspiration for your business and your brand and achieving the goals that you have for your life. Thank you so much for checking it out, and we'll see you in there.
All right. Guys, well, welcome back to the Top Shelf Show. Today, we've got one of the OGs, Marcus Jones, in the house. So I'm going to let Marcus kind of talk because you have I feel like describing your career, like path and like the journey that you've been on is a lot. So I'm going to let you kind of like walk us through that, kind of surmise it a little bit. But yeah, so we'll start there and then we'll get into things. But Marcus, today, right, like as of July 3rd, right, 2025, like you work in hospice care, right? But you didn't always do that. So kind of walk us through the journey of Marcus Jones, like kind of everywhere you've been.
We were just talking about this, trying to keep it at 45 minutes. Yeah. But the nutshell version of this is, yes, I work as a hospice chaplain now. I was the care and outreach pastor at Trailside Church out in Travelers Rest, South Carolina, there for, a couple years. Was ordained January 26th of 2020, and then left out from there, I guess it was September of 23 to go and plant another church down in Florida. So that's actually how I wound up working in hospice, doing bivocational church planting. Pro tip: church planting, not exactly the most lucrative career option, but you don't do it for the money. So just you work bivocationally. And so after finishing my Master of Divinity in 2024, I was able to find a job that was going to help support us while we were doing that. And I worked in medicine before getting into ministry. So 2018, I was still working out as a medical assistant and medical scribe, was going to try to go to physician assisting school. I was doing that from about 2014 up until then. Had a couple sporadic years where I was doing that like as a summer job or after college, and even a little bit during. And I felt very led to be in a healing profession. Just very, very much always felt that like call and a weight to be in something like that. And after completing all of my prerequisites for physician assisting school and having 20 some odd thousand hours of patient contact and everything else, this wasn't it. It was not it. I started going back to church, was out of church for a while, and just really felt the tug to get into ministry. And that happened, whether I wanted it to or not, as I used to, used to say. But the beautiful thing about it, though, is hospice chaplaincy kind of smashes both of those things together. So I'm working alongside medical professionals in an interdisciplinary team environment, and I can actually relate to a lot of what the nurses and our CNAs and all of them actually go through themselves. And I also have a little bit more of an understanding to provide that reassurance to, patients and their families. Obviously not giving any sort of medical advice or anything, because that's nowhere near my lane as a chaplain, but being able to reinforce what they've been told, and in some instances kind of maybe even break things down a little bit to help them kind of understand what's going on. So it's been a wild ride from medicine into ministry. But even before then, my undergraduate degree was in earth and environmental science. So, my dad, he always used to say that I was a Toys R Us kid, because I couldn't decide what I wanted to be when I grow up. So, Changed my major a couple of times, even when I was out at Furman, and I only live once.
Yeah.
The old millennial YOLO. So I wanted to try it all. Just try to see what fit the best.
Well, and so what's cool is like, so cause I've known you for
2018.
Yeah,
now,
so 7 years. Yeah, 7 years now, which is crazy. So what's really cool is kind of having like a bit of a front row seat to a lot of this, right?
Yeah.
And it's cool you talking now about like, hey, like working in hospice care, like as a chaplain, right?
Yeah.
And kind of that intersection of like medical and faith, right?
Mm-hmm.
And being able, like, I would say uniquely gifted in that because you have a background in both, being able to really like, I would say bring like an additional like level of value to it wouldn't be your patients, but to your, is there a term? To your patients. Okay, patients.
Caseload, patients. Yeah.
Like bring that kind of additional level of value and kind of like just comfort to your patients, because it's not like you're not able to speak to just one or the other. Like you're able to kind of sit in the middle there. That's incredible. Well, and so one of the things I know I wanted to talk to you about, like thinking kind of where you're at now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm kind of pulling from a conversation we had the other day, but like thinking where you're at now, like what is it like? How does it feel knowing that like all these kind of different stops on the road, if you will, like from, call it like Furman with Geology, right? To now, like what does it mean for you to have like all these different stops on the road?
Yeah,
like have all kind of come together into like this career where like it's very much I don't know. Like, I don't think you were sitting in Furman being like, yeah, one day I'm going to be, I'm going to work in hospice as a chaplain. Like, I don't know. I guess what I'm trying to say, like, what's it like looking back and seeing how all the pieces have come together?
Yeah. So that's a beautiful question. First off,
it wasn't well worded, but thank you.
No, I mean, the heart of what you're asking is being able to kind of see how everything is connected to today, and that's one of those fundamental questions that I actually deal with a lot with my patients is, having a meaningful life experience. And we call it fostering, life review and emotional expression and all of these and all of those kinds of terms in our patients. But it's also not just for the patients, it's for their families as well. Because hospice is a journey that is for everybody that's involved. And the family, especially, they're typically the primary caregivers, not in all cases. Trust me, it's as varied as you think. You see people in the lowest of lows and the highest of highs and everywhere in between. And it's been a humbling experience, first off, to see that. But in reference to the, we'll say, eclectic career background that I've got, because I've done everything from landscaping during the summer months as a kid to helping my dad do electrical work on houses and contract stuff back in the day, wiring barns and all sorts of shenanigans, to part-time working as a liquor store delivery guy after college, because you do what you got to do. You do what you got to do to make it. To working as a geospatial information systems tech and an environmental consulting group, field geology, medicine. I mean, I've tried on many different hats, and it was at the time very frustrating. And what I discovered is there was a lot of cultural pressure that I felt, and even like this like unconscious expectation of that I had on myself from just picking up things in the world around me to like, you're going to be defined by basically about what you do. And I didn't want to be just simply defined by my vocation. So I was like, okay, I'm going to try many different hats, but I still feel like I have a an idea of like who I am, kind of, you know, like I want to help people. I want to make some kind of difference, you know. We'll call it youthful idealism to some degree. And even my transition into medicine came after me leaving an environmental consulting. You know, I was kind of gig at a manufacturing plant in 2014. Was out there for like 2 years, going on 3, and it was honestly good career. I mean, I could have stayed doing that as the industrial waste processing treatment guy for however 30, 40 years, retired and everything, been fine, but just something just kept tugging. Like, no, this was good for the season, but it's not where I'm supposed to be. Now, applying all of that to today, my patients are as varied in their physical, like the jobs that they did, their vocations, as they are in their personalities, as they are in their faith, as they are in their ideals, as they are in their general opinions on life. You know, people are individual, and they're people. Yeah, people, you know. But what I've found is that all of these different career experiences and being around people from all sorts of different walks of life has all kind of come together now and informed not just the hospice chaplaincy, but even in ministry. It allows me to have some empathy for people in a way that I don't think I would have been able to. You know, it makes it a little bit more real because I can at least relate to them and kind of have some idea of maybe some of the cultural pressures that they might be facing, or some of the job pressures they might be facing, or even from a financial perspective, you know, some financial pressures, you know. So it all has come together in a way to where it allows me to just basically relate to people in a very unique way. And it's helpful because it almost feels, I don't want to say vindicating, but kind of.
You know that it was for a reason. Like you knew that like the reason that like kind of you call it like you walked the path you walked was like you're seeing that now the reason for that. Well, and because honestly, like when you were talking, my question, my it's gonna be a bit of a tough question, but like thinking like, do you think that you would be as good of a chaplain, like be able to be as good of a chaplain for them had you not gone through the things you've gone through?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, I say no. No as well, because like you said, you can have at least, even if you don't like haven't fully experienced what they've experienced, you can have a level of empathy with them and what they've experienced that you would honestly kind of just be guessing if you hadn't experienced what you experienced, because you wouldn't really know it to the same degree. Yeah, 100%. Well, and then so with working with people, obviously there's actually, let me clarify that statement. So with working with people, but also working with people in, like you said, really high highs, really low lows, just a very like I mean, it's a stressful time. Like it's a very there's a lot of like high things, right? Something I know that like, and I say this because you've helped me with it a ton, honestly, is communication and like emotionally healthy communication, right? So that is something I did want to kind of ask about. Like,
absolutely.
First off, can you kind of define emotionally healthy communication? But then also, like, how does that show up in what you do?
Sure. So a lot of the emotionally healthy communication and things of that nature come out of a program. Shout out to Peter and Jerry Scazzaro from Emotionally Healthy Discipleship. And so I was actually introduced to that during personal counseling for myself back in around 2016 and 17. And it was kind of in tandem with, you know, personal counseling. It started off as like a group thing, which it wasn't originally designed to be like a small group curriculum. It was meant to be more of like a larger kind of cohort with table leaders and like all this other stuff. But it was adopted as almost a small group at a faith-based counseling center. Sure. And so that was kind of my introduction to the program. But specifically emotionally healthy relationships relates to the communication aspect. And so I got certified to teach that, and I guess it was 2019, and then launched, I think it was the first time in 2021 at church before. And the long story short of that is you look at assumptions and expectations. And that comes very heavily out of like the second week of that program. And stop mind reading and clarifying expectations was the title of that week. I kind of took a lot of the lessons out of that and just ran with it. Because I started noticing, especially after teaching it and it kind of integrating it into just my own family dynamic, and even having that implemented in the staff at church, was that it helped with mediation a lot.
Well, I would say even helped prevent the need. Prevent the need for mediation sounds bad, but it would help kind of like before there was an issue, like before there was a disagreement, whatever. Like you just head it off before it even becomes a thing.
Absolutely.
Sorry, not to interrupt.
Oh no. I mean, you're 100% right. So like one of the things that I love about problem solving is I enjoy what is called like upstream problem solving, right? So when you're dealing with downstream problem solving, the issue is that whatever that problem has already occurred, and now you're dealing with the effects of that. And that in principle can be applied to anything. So businesses, if you have a supply line issue, you want to see where the issue is upstream. You don't want to be dealing with it downstream, right?
Because you got to deal with the downstream, and then also eventually you have to deal with the upstream.
You still have to address the core heart and root of the problem.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I've noticed over the course of years now at this point is assumptions and unconscious expectations are wildly rampant in our culture, but also in our homes, in our families, in our businesses, jobs, churches, you name it. Anywhere there's people, there's going to be that. And so what I found is that with emotionally healthy communication, you want to have an idea of, and this is again kind of built on the principles in the book, is you want to know what your own bias is to a degree. Okay. Especially when you're wanting to relate to people. Because if you don't account for your own bias when you're looking at people, you're talking economic, you're talking race, color, creed, ethnicity, all those other kind of things. Like, what are the unconscious expectations and assumptions you might be making about people, about their lives, about who they are as a person? And where is that already coming from to start with? Was it a cultural thing that you learned from your family, from other people? And trying to kind of account for all of that even before you start interacting with somebody. But also in the inverse, they're going to be doing the exact same thing to you, whether they realize it or not. And that's the hard part, is people have a very varying degree of emotional and spiritual intelligence. And so what emotionally healthy communication helps us do is kind of account for your own, but also others. And, I've heard it said that, Christians, we should be like the least offendable people. And in a lot of ways, I agree with that. But I think a lot of that comes from the understanding that people are people, and we are also people, right? And so one of the big taglines with emotionally healthy stuff to begin with is that you can only be as spiritually mature as you are emotionally mature. And so it's kind of a combination of mental health as well as, spiritual elements tied in together. And so when you're talking about assumptions, right? One of the easy clarifying questions that you can ask, and just like little tags that we use, like the sentence stems to help, is first and foremost just asking if you have an assumption. And so it'd be like, hey, Dusty, I'd like to clarify an assumption that I have. Is that okay with you? And one of the things that does is it sets me up in your mind for, okay, he's already admitted he has an assumption, and he's asking to clarify it, which means that it could be right and it could be wrong. And if it winds up being right, okay, we can talk about that. So, Dusty, can I clarify an assumption with you? Right. And you say, yes, sure. Mm-hmm. And we'll be like, I think that you think that I really wanted a great ghost.
Yeah.
And, when you went to the store, and is that true? And we're like, yes. Okay. Mm-hmm. But it could also be something as more intent of like, hey, Dusty, can I ask you, clarify a question for you? And be like, okay, yeah, sure. And be like, well, hey, I think that you felt disregarded when I had to reschedule this meeting. Is that true? Mm-hmm. And the reality is, I already asked you that Monday.
Yeah.
And you were like, nah, man, it's completely fine. So now that lets me off the hook a little bit, for one, because I've been carrying that pressure of thinking that you would be upset that we had to reschedule.
Yeah.
But just because I believed it was true and assumed it to be true
doesn't mean it was.
Yeah. And so how often do we tell ourselves stories that we have assumed and believed? And that can be a big danger with people that are either more highly empathetic and think that they know things that they don't, mm-hmm. right? But that's just like an easy, low-hanging fruit. There's countless assumptions that people make every single day of their lives. It's a natural part of processing, right? Yeah. But it could be parents to children. You assume you know why your kids do certain things. Hey, why did you do that? This is bad. You can't, blah, blah, blah. There's 1.5 million times that probably happens a day for all of us that are parents.
Yeah.
But when was the last time we ever stopped to just really ask and practice that level of communication, even with them?
Yeah.
Right. And now with expectations, I like to say that unchecked assumptions long enough can eventually start to become unconscious expectations, mm-hmm. right? So easy, again, low-hanging fruit. I know that if I were to get on the 178 and head down to Anderson, and I'm on that road at 8 o'clock in the morning, it is going to be very busy. Yeah. And I need to go ahead and add 10 to 15 minutes to my commute. And over time, that assumption of if I don't leave the house by this time can set an expectation of myself of I know I'm going to be late now if I leave by this time to get to wherever I'm going.
Yeah.
Does that necessarily mean that's always true? No.
Assumptions informed it.
Exactly. The assumption has informed it. And it's now become an expectation that I have that can put pressure on me that if I'm not done and ready at this time, by this space and whatever else, my day is going to be behind. It's going to be stressful and everything else. And what do you think that would do to my family dynamic in the morning around 7 o'clock? And then I have to leave by 7:15 in order to miss the traffic. And now I've got all this pressure and the kids are taking much longer. My wife wants to talk to me about something before I go to work and all these over there. I have to, I got to go. But the reality is I'm setting myself up for failure, and I may not even be fully cognizant of the fact that I'm carrying that expectation.
Yeah.
And am applying all the consequences of that onto my family. Mm-hmm. That's one of the easiest low-hanging fruit examples that we have, but that can be said for anything. Disagreements on, dare I say, politics or religion or whatever else that might be. Not that we're going to be getting into those discussions today, but just...
We only have 45 minutes.
Right, yeah, Jesus. But at the end of the day, our expectations, there's... Pete Scazzaro and them had defined 4 things for an emotionally healthy expectation.
Mm-hmm. There it is.
And it has to hit these 4 criteria. And if it doesn't hit the one specifically of them, the other 3, it's not that they don't matter, but I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but I digress. The point is, it has to be first conscious. You have to know that you have the expectation in order for it to be an emotionally healthy expectation to have, whether of yourself or another person. Yep. So again, it has to be conscious. You got to know that you have it. The second is that it has to be spoken, meaning that if you know you have it, now you've actually communicated that to the people that it may also affect. Mm-hmm. The third is that it has to be realistic. And now realistic specifically is taken from the perspective that you either, if it's of another person, that they have displayed some kind of outward evidence of what you're asking of them is something they've either done in the past already, mm-hmm. or they have the capacity or capability to do it.
Yeah.
It has to be realistic, okay? Mm-hmm. it is not a realistic expectation of me to expect my 6-year-old to have a fully in-depth conversation about why they got into the pantry and ate an entire pack of Oreos.
Yeah.
Like I would be sitting down and talking to, my wife. Like that's not a realistic expectation. It's 10 o'clock. They wanted a snack. They got Oreos. It can be that simple, right?
Yeah.
But to put that a little bit more meaningfully, somebody that's not equipped with certain emotional skill sets and tools, it may not necessarily be realistic of me to expect that they're going to be able to meet me on the same playing field to have an in-depth emotional conversation about something.
Because you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly. And, somebody doesn't have certain coping skills and they're going through a hard time in life and they're outwardly kind of lashing out. It's not realistic of me to expect, if they don't have those skills, to be able to self-regulate and kind of calm down a bit, And so you that's kind of hope you can kind of see where I'm coming from on that point.
Yeah.
So, but then the last one, so again, conscious, spoken, and realistic. And the last one, if it doesn't meet these criteria, the other 3 don't matter.
Mm-hmm.
And the fourth is that it has to be mutually agreed upon between you and that other person. Because if it's not, it doesn't matter that you are aware of your expectation. It doesn't matter that it has been spoken and communicated. And it doesn't matter that it's realistic of you to expect it of another person. Our expectations do not override the agency of another person.
Yep.
And if you do that in marriage, for example, and you have an expectation of like certain, let's say structure in the home of who's going to be taking the kids to school or picking them up or whatever the case might be, it has to be mutually agreed upon between both parties for it to be an emotionally healthy expectation to have. Mm-hmm. Now that sounds all well and good, but there are still going to be times where people fail. There's going to be times where even if it does meet all of those criteria where it still doesn't get done. Well, then what? Basically you can turn that expectation into a hope. Mm-hmm. Let's say if there was like a big fight over a family holiday and the relationships kind of got strained and whatever, it's like, well, we've been together for Christmas for the last 20 something years of our lives, but now because of this thing, like we're separated and like, what are we going to do? Well, we could turn that expectation into a hope that maybe someday soon we might be able to communicate and bridge that back together, and then hope that we'll be able to get back to our, family Christmas gatherings, as always. The other thing is that maybe the person that you were having that conversation with felt maybe a lot of pressure to agree. Mm-hmm. And they were doing that as a means of peacekeeping rather than fully being aware of their own internal stuff. Mm-hmm. Right. And so that being said, sometimes those expectations, even when they're spoken in that way, can still almost, maybe they took it as a demand versus it being something different. And so that still means that we have to work on our own communication skills of how we're discussing those expectations at the same time. Mm-hmm. And again, the last option there is that maybe it just didn't get done, and maybe something happened that wasn't accounted for or planned, or maybe the person you had that talk with stretched themselves a little bit too thin and it all fell apart. Yeah. The question now is, can we assume grace? Can we assume forgiveness? Is there an expectation of that in that relationship, that there will be that forgiveness if it falls apart? Mm-hmm. I would say ideally in the covenant of marriage, yes. Yeah. Hopefully you're going to have grace for, you have to kind of pivot sometimes, right? Especially with your spouse. But what about with our friends? We want to meet for coffee, we want to meet and, go to 13 Stripes or something like that. And it doesn't work out. Do we have the grace to say, hey, sometimes life happens and that's okay? Or are we going to let that assumption, if it happens multiple times, now become an expectation of, well, I guess they just don't want to be friends anymore. Yeah. See what I mean? So a lot of that can just, it enters into us so easily. Yeah. And unless you are consciously aware of that, mm-hmm. to first and foremost, I would say pray against it first off, but second off, emotionally and mentally prepare yourself for that, because that is daily warfare.
Mm-hmm.
That is daily warfare in our lives.
Yeah.
And it's something that I don't know. I don't even know if it's necessarily, if we know that it is there,
mm-hmm.
or if we acknowledge that it's there, but we just don't address it.
Yeah. Well, I think so I love everything that you said. I think the biggest takeaway from it, or maybe not the biggest, but one of the biggest, is
Sure.
the first, and I would say even the biggest step is the awareness. That's right. Because obviously there's a lot, and there's, by the way, there's so much to this that there's no way we could go through all this in 45 minutes.
Right,
even if you took the whole 45 minutes, there's no way. There's so much to it, but a lot of the stuff after awareness is tools. A lot of
That's
it is, hey, if this happens, this is what you use here. Or, hey, if this happens, do this, right? Here's a system to kind of walk yourself through. But the first and biggest step is just that awareness of,
That's
hey,
right.
what are my, what biases do I have? And then what expectations am I holding other people to? And I maybe don't even realize it. You know what I mean? And I know, kind of talking impact on marriage. That was one of the best, coolest things for Elizabeth and I, was going and being, just being exposed to it, but also going through classes and stuff for emotionally healthy spirituality and for relationships.
Yeah.
Right before, as we were getting married, right in that window of things. And I know that's even been something that, we've been married, it was 3 years in April. And that's just been really cool, because I know from other people, they, not that they just fought the whole first year or anything, that sounds bad, but it was we definitely, I feel had an easier time getting into it maybe than other people have had, not because we're just oh my gosh, y'all are so great. It's because we had the tools. It's because we were put in a spot where we were made aware of what expectations that we maybe had for each other, or things like that, and then just having the tools to be able to talk and communicate and kind of work through it is killer. So what so I want to kind of marry these two together, right?
Sure.
So how does emotionally healthy relationships, communication, how does that show up for you? And obviously your career is, I would say, probably a little bit more of a niche than maybe other people.
Sure.
But how does that show up for you in your day to day, in your career?
So it's multifaceted.
Sure.
Because pastoral counseling is, I would say, that's the heart of what I do. And I like to say that more as pastoral mentoring.
Mm-hmm.
And that mainly just comes from the fact that, yes, although I have a master's of divinity in pastoral counseling, the modality is very specific. It's short-term, solution-focused pastoral counseling. That's the only real thing I'm certified in, save for the Symbis and Prepare Enrich, marital programs and stuff. But insofar as counseling specifically, that's the one methodology that I'm supposed to stay in and use.
Sure.
Otherwise, it's referrals out to professional mental health counselors and things of that nature. So anytime I enter into that kind of a one-on-one, or maybe even one with a couple kind of relationship, I like to use mentoring specifically, just because it frees up that expectation of what counseling implies. And there's very specific reasons for that. Like I said, for the licensure stuff and everything else too. But it also helps me stay in my lane.
Yeah.
Right. I like to tell people that I can go snorkeling with them, but I am not going to go scuba diving, and I'm definitely not going
That's a really great illustration.
Going, even deeper, deep sea. I'm not equipped for that. You got to go and talk to, my people at Stillwind or something if you want to do that. Yeah. But how this kind of impacts the chaplaincy specifically with hospice is, there's a lot of expectations that people have as they're approaching end of life. There's a lot of expectations that their surviving family members may have. And a lot of them are being horribly unfulfilled. Especially from the family perspective, looking and saying, this person whom I love greatly and dearly and is very meaningful to me is facing the end of their life. And that's not what I expected at this stage of where I'm at.
It's not what I expected, yeah.
Right. And so we're seeing expectations shattered. And that, in a worldview, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's very hard. And even for the person themselves, the patient, it is, it's very hard sometimes to see that. And so what the emotionally healthy, principles, because as I said, what I've done is I've taken the principles from all of this and just kind of ran with it, even within the realm of short-term solution-focused pastoral counseling, is it allows me to see them where they're at. We talk about what their expectations are from a point of grief, because that's exactly what grief is. I like to say that grief is the absence of being able to apply that love that you had for that person or for that worldview you had, or this, this love with nowhere to go. And grief, we first and foremost, we like to, as humans, we love to categorize everything into boxes. Okay. And, it's very easy for us to say, oh, I'm in the anger stage of grief, or no, I'm in the bargaining or whatever. People have heard these phrases, and the lie that gives us is that it makes us believe that there's this very easy, clear, just
1, 2, 3 of it.
I'm going to go, I'm here and I'm here and I'm here and I'm here. And it's more like grief is it's like a little posse leader, and grief shows up and has friends that pop up with them.
Yeah.
And that might be anger, sadness, and fear, and all of these other things kind of at one time. But the biggest thing is that grief is just that, is that love that has nowhere to go. There's this absence, and that loss will always be there. It doesn't shrink. We don't fill that hole with something else. It is. And that is one of the hardest things for people to accept sometimes, is that this grief it's there, but it is our capacity for grief.
Yeah.
For welcoming grief in as a friend versus seeing it as a foe. And even the friends that grief brings along with us. And so what these principles have done is it helps me meet patients where they're at. And we can kind of systematically talk about those expectations that they have.
Yeah.
Help normalize that experience for them. But the biggest thing is it helps me hold space for them to process it. You would be surprised the emotional healing that can come from people just from holding this sacred space for them to feel safe enough to actually be heard. And that's not just for hospice.
Nope.
That's not just for this one thing. That is for everywhere.
Well, I was going to say that the very next thing I was going to draw a line from that to just my first thought was like personal relationships. But then, even in like other industries, like even in other businesses and whatever you do, like being like I'm just going to repeat you because I love how you said it.
Sure.
Like leaving that space for people to feel heard and to feel understood, and like for them to be able to like whatever they have going on in their life, because like if you're a lot of people that watch this are like business owners and stuff, so
sure,
like you're a business owner, but also the other person that's on the side, let's try that again, the person that's on the other side of that table is another business owner,
right,
who is also another person who also has all of their business things that are going on, but then also is a person with a life and a spouse and kids and family and a dog and a pet guinea pig and they have all of the things that you deal with in your life.
That's right.
They are also dealing with their version of it as well.
That's right.
And then also running a business and also taxes and all of the things. This is so good. Such a full circle moment. Okay. So how, and this is hard because I know this, and like, this is probably not something we can do in like one short like statement or whatever, but like, how would you equip somebody like for something like that? Like if there was like, if there was like a takeaway, if there was like a, hey, like, obviously we can have more of a conversation about this, but listen, this is what you like need to know right now. Like I would almost call it like the like commander's intent, right? There's a book called Extreme Ownership and I'm reading it right now and so it's on top of my mind, but it's like, we can go into the details, but this is like the overarching 40,000 foot view. This is what you have to know about what we're doing. And then we can get into the details.
Sure.
How would you, like how would you equip, I guess, somebody to leave space for somebody else and everything that they're happening in their life?
So there's a skill called active listening. And if you want people to feel heard, it's going to sound strange. It's a technique that counselors, pastors, chaplains use. And there's various degrees to this. You may recall this from emotionally healthy relationships, where I believe they called it incarnational listening in emotionally healthy relationships. And what that means is, again, we're leaving that space for the Holy Spirit in that example. But active listening is essentially the same thing, but very, very degrees. So 40,000 foot view, easiest way to let somebody be heard is, let's say, just take this conversation here. For example, is, I think you're wanting me to basically kind of get to a point of answering what a key lesson to take away for the audience that's listening, for business owners and other people that may even be in my position, whether that's other pastoral leaders or whatever that might be. What is something that is that key takeaway that would kind of summate everything we've talked about today? Is that true? So yeah, that's active listening.
Yep.
It's basic.
You being you.
What I literally just did right there.
And then I interrupted you. So.
Oh yeah, no, you're okay. That's. Did you see how you had that desire to respond?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, what it told me, it's because I feel like an important distinction between like active listening and just being able to summarize it.
That's right.
It wasn't like you just listened to enough of what I had to say that you just like regurgitated it back to me. Yep. It was, hey, here's here's the details of it, but here's the heart, here's the purpose, here's
my comprehension of it.
Exactly. There's a comprehension aspect of it.
That's right.
Versus just like root memorization and just repeating it back.
Don't just listen to respond.
Yep.
Listen to understand.
Love that.
So if you're in a conversation and your whole thing is you're listening just for this singular moment to where you can respond to what's being said, you're not actually listening to what they're saying. You're focusing more on your response. And if you want somebody to be heard, listen to actually hear what they're saying. And because I can promise you, one of the biggest differences with whether you're in a business, whether that business is a church, I'm just going to go ahead and say that, or what you're doing with a media company with Top Shelf, or whatever the case might be. If you make your clients, your people, your parishioners, your congregation feel heard, and they know that you're actually listening, they're gonna walk away believing that they are valued by you. That's one of the rarest things in this life, especially in our culture today, is being heard.
Yep.
You walk into a gas station, what's the first thing that you're asked? Hey, how you doing today?
Yeah.
Did that mean that? No.
Especially not in the South.
No, God, no. Yeah. Hey, how y'all doing? Yeah, I'm doing good.
Yeah.
Well, man, actually, I'm having a really rough day, bro. I was just asking how you're doing. What are you doing here, right?
Yeah. I don't think you understand how this goes.
Right.
Like, I ask how you're doing, you say good, and then we move on with our lives.
Right, exactly. That platitude.
Yeah.
We have become so desensitized to really a simple but very deep question: how you're doing. And man, you could radically change someone's life today at the grocery store if you actually held that space for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And just let somebody else be heard. Whether that's the cashier behind, the register, or if it's just some person that looks like they're having a bad day in the store. But like I said, man, our spouses, our kids, our friends, we are dying for realistic, open, full communication. And that is more than anything what I've seen with hospice patients and their families is this utter impending feeling of just loneliness, profound loneliness.
Yeah.
And so yeah, man, just listening to people, to hear them and provide that space for them to actually be heard. Life changing.
Yeah.
It'll completely, that could be a make or break between two similar companies, between who makes them feel the most valued and heard versus gives me that feeling of just being another number.
Yeah. Well, and then so even bringing it back in, like, so that's kind of on the business side, right? Even
Sure.
on I love what you said about the personal, or what you touched on with the personal side, where like, yes, in business, right? Like, we obviously want, your clients, your customers, your whoever that audience is for you, right? So obviously making them feel heard and leaving that space for them.
Yeah.
But even on the personal side, right? Like, going into those conversations, whether, and I would say like the conversations or maybe the confrontations of like the arguments and things,
There you
right? With, understanding your biases, but then also like communicating those expectations. And I'll say, just for me personally, because I remember having those conversations with Elizabeth, like, it kind of feels weird when you do it the first couple times. Like, it really, like, asking, like, that's not a normal question to be like, hey, I like I think probably my favorite from the whole thing is like, I think that you think. Like, and just like having that, and that's something I all the time with Elizabeth, with other people, like, hey, I think that you think this. Am I right? Am I wrong? You know what I mean? And then like just asking for that clarity. It feels really weird doing it like the first couple times because it's not normal. But honestly, the more you do it, the more it kind of just becomes second nature. Yeah. And then the other thing I think I really wanted to, I did want to make sure that we touched on this just to round it out. When we were talking about like expectations and how when they're unmet, at some point they would become a hope. That like, I think you used like a Christmas example. Right. Like, what role does like healthy boundaries play in that? Right.
I was actually about to bring that up too.
Because like, I feel like that there's got to be a balance there, right?
Yes. So, because otherwise you don't want to be a doormat for people, but that's also what expectations help you do. Like they can be, when they're healthily communicated, an expectation of a boundary, for example, like, hey, if you do this, then I'm going to. Yeah. Right. And that's one of the biggest differences between a boundary and like a demand, because we can very often get those confused, where it's like, well, hey, if you do this, then, you need to leave because you're just not welcome or whatever. And like, that's not a boundary. That's you trying to force somebody to your will. Yeah. Let's say you're in a meeting with a client and they start getting just wild in that moment. And it's, hey, I can see that you're upset right now. I'm gonna step away and get some space and let you do what you need to do to self-regulate. And then I will pick this conversation up with you when, at a later time. Yeah. That is a very clear-cut boundary that this has now occurred. And I don't think you're in a good emotionally regulated space right now to have a more in-depth conversation about the problem. And so I am now going to go do this. Yeah. That's the difference between the boundary and, well, because you got really upset and dysregulated and everything else now we're in this big argument and whatnot, you need to leave. It's like, yeah. Okay. Now they're here in your office. Like, that's a little different. You know what I'm saying? But let's say the argument happened while you're out at a shoot. Yeah. The only thing that I can control is where I'm physically at in my own my reactions and actions and choices based off of what they're going to do. And the boundary aspect is, I'm now going to remove myself from this because I expect of myself to not be dealing with this kind of thing for me, right? Like, I can, but
I'm not going
not
to.
today.
Yeah.
But I also expect, we have a contract. I expect professionalism. I expect respect, right? And if that doesn't happen, then we have to go in a different way. But that, again, that's something that you can account for in expectations with business. Those are things that you put into your contracts. Those are things that you put in to account for those. And then, of course, unexpected things always happen. But I think the biggest key difference is what are these core values that I have inside of me that, whether that's respect, honesty, loyalty, trust, whatever that might be, to have the awareness of knowing that these are big, big things. And if they get violated by another person, by an outburst or whatever, what am I now going to do?
Yeah.
What is my expectation of myself? Because again, we cannot control the actions of other people.
Yeah.
But that is sometimes a part of mentoring, is holding people accountable to the things that they have agreed to.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that, and then I think like there's the holding them accountable, and then there's also like obviously boundaries and having the expectations of yourself and things like keeping those in mind. There's kind of looping in what you said earlier about, sometimes you are more equipped than they are from an emotional standpoint,
That's right.
Spiritual standpoint, that kind of thing. So sometimes what that looks like is obviously inside of those boundaries, inside of like those expectations for yourself, like you maybe meeting them where they are. So maybe like showing them that grace and kind of helping bring them into maybe honestly, sometimes maybe it's just an understanding of how these things play out and like what they're doing, because they might not realize it.
Yeah.
Because you might be the first, I mean, honestly, depending on the person, you might be the first time that someone's actually had a conversation like this with them that was actually designed and like engineered towards it being constructive and towards it being towards like, hey, growth, exactly, like towards this growth and towards like, hey, let's get to a good place where we both walk away happy, or where we both learn something, or where like we're both better off having had it than like, you're mad, I'm mad, you know what, I'm going to take my proverbial ball and I'm going home, and you go home and we're done, and we're, and it's just like, that's not, no one wins there. You know what I mean?
Broken egos and pride does, but that doesn't serve anybody.
Okay. Well, and then, so much, I love all this. Okay. So, to kind of recap, things, right? So, we talked, emotionally healthy spirituality, a big thing in there, kind of the biggest step, is the first step really is just awareness. Like your bias, try that again. I talk too fast. Awareness of your biases and expectations, right? Kind of talked a bit about like boundaries. And then I love the communication aspect of it, of like that checking assumptions. And I don't know, just so like, I'll be honest with you, coming into this, I wasn't like, I knew I wanted to talk emotionally healthy spirituality and communication and things like that, but I don't know that I fully saw how we were going to be able to connect kind of what you do and how that shows up in your career, right? With call it like less niche areas. Super cool. Big fan. So I feel like we kind of already touched on this, but like the big takeaway, I guess the big takeaway in this case is going to be the active listening. It's going to be like that, leaving space for people to feel heard. Is there anything you'd want to add to that? And if not, I feel like that's great on its own. But
I mean, I think again, for the 40,000 foot view, the one skill, the one thing that I would urge people to do is to, again, listen to actually hear other people, not just to respond. If you catch yourself when somebody else is talking to you, keeping track of what they're saying and formulating your response to it instead, you're not truly listening to them. Holding that space and then giving yourself a little bit of time to process and then choosing to speak, right? It's like the same as, I don't ever want to communicate back to somebody reactionarily. Ever. Because that, if your knee-jerk initial reaction may not be a good thing to say.
Probably isn't, I would say.
The Lord gave us filters. Let's make sure we clean them and keep them, up, right? But so I think that's the biggest thing by far is the listening, the listening aspect of it. And just knowing that you're not alone in the difficulties when you start doing that. It's a very common thing. But I would urge people to just check on those that you love. Check on those that you love. You know, I know it's a mental health has kind of become like a hashtag all over social media in a lot of ways. But really, truly, just check on people. Don't take people for granted, man.
Yeah. Don't
take people in life for granted. My God, don't take it for granted. Yeah, I'd say that's probably the biggest thing. Just listen, do that active listening, listen to actually hear another person, and don't take those people for granted.
Yeah. I love that. Okay. Now, where can people go to find out more about you? I know you mentioned Stillwind. I'd love to plug them.
Absolutely.
All the things you'd want to plug, like where can people go and learn more about them, see what they're doing, that kind of thing.
So definitely emotionallyhealthy.org. That is where you can find the full suite of emotionally healthy discipleship material that is written by Peter and Jerry Scazzaro. They've got online cohorts, and you may, sooner rather than later, we're planning on trying to bring those back to the upstate. And, I'm trying to formulate what that's going to look like right now. But for those of you that want to get a little bit more information, maybe even get the book, I would highly recommend you start with the Emotionally Healthy Discipleship book. It kind of goes into a lot of this, but it's not in the course framework. Another organization that I definitely have to shout out is New Breed Training, not the jiu-jitsu guys. Much love to them. I love martial arts myself. But this is New Breed Training. They're out of California's Peyton Jones and Brooks Heyman and all those guys out there. Phenomenal people. Really have kind of helped level me up insofar as my mentoring ability and teaching classes and teaching people discipleship specifically. But especially if you're in ministry and you're looking for groups to kind of come in and help and elevate that one-on-one kind of experience, like what we've been talking about, from listening and just caring for people, both of those organizations combined will radically change the culture of your church, your family, maybe even business.
Awesome.
Stillwind Ministries. They are a 501c3 organization here in the upstate. They are a mental health organization. And they're a faith-based grant funding organization now, but we're looking at, from a development perspective, kind of growing that out into some community engagement, more specifically leadership development. And that's not just for, the goal is not just for it to be ministry leaders, but eventually just people in business and, corporate and stuff as well. And so that'd be the big three. And, Refuge, we're still in the formulation stages of what that's going to look like. So maybe sometime here in the future, in the next few months, you guys might hear a little whispers, it's like, what do your elven eyes see there, Legolas? It's like on the horizon there. It's coming. We're just waiting to see, waiting humbly on the Lord to see where that's going to be.
Yeah, that's okay. You're going to be back on, so it's fine. We can talk about it then.
Yeah, fair enough.
Awesome. Well, Marcus, thank you for being here.
Yeah,
guys, appreciate you guys checking out the Top Shelf Show. That's really all I got for us today, or we have for you guys today. Like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.
Hey guys, thank you so much for checking out the Top Shelf Show. We hope that you walk away feeling inspired by the stories, by the lessons that the entrepreneurs, these business owners have learned and that they shared with us in this episode. We want to congratulate you in advance on the success that you're about to have in your own business, and we cannot wait to hear from you one day and possibly have you on the show. So be sure to check out the next episode, and as always, you can reach us on all of our social media platforms here. And thank you guys. We'll see you next time.